A nuclear submarine can make its own power, its own air, even its own drinking water. But the reactor isn't what limits how long it stays submerged. Food is. For a Virginia-class boat with 130 crew, you've got about 90 days before the mission ends. The secret isn't exotic tech. It's ruthless planning, a galley that never sleeps, and a trick that turns sleeping racks into shelves. Here's the constraint. 130 people eat 4 meals a day. That's breakfast, lunch, dinner, and midnight rations for the night watch. The galley runs 24 hours, no breaks, no delivery trucks, no grocery store 2 miles down the road. Every single bite gets loaded before the hatch closes, and once you're down, you're eating what you brought. The reactor can run for decades. The air scrubbers work indefinitely. The water plant turns the ocean into drinking water faster than the crew can use it. But food takes up space, and space is the one thing a submarine doesn't have. So where do they put it all? Before a patrol, the boat goes through something called stores load. It's controlled chaos, pallets stacked with boxes, a human chain passing food hand to hand through a single hatch. Cooks ripping off cardboard and outer packaging on the pier because every square inch counts. What comes aboard is stripped down, vacuum sealed, and logged. The storage plan is obsessive. Fresh food goes up front and on top. Milk, eggs, lettuce, tomatoes, fresh fruit. Stuff that rots fast gets eaten first. That's week 1. After that, you're into frozen. The boat has deep freezers and they're packed floor to ceiling. Meat, chicken, fish, vegetables. If it can freeze, it does. Frozen inventory carries you through weeks 2 to 6. Then you hit the dry and canned phase. Rice, pasta, flour, canned vegetables, soup, beans, peanut butter, cereal. This is the endurance layer. It doesn't spoil, doesn't need power, and fills the gaps when the freezers start thinning out. But here's the problem. A Virginia-class submarine wasn't designed to be a grocery warehouse, so the crew gets creative. Food goes under the racks where sailors sleep. It goes in overhead compartments above the walkways. It gets tucked behind wall panels. It fills voids in the engine room. And early in the patrol, it even goes into the torpedo room. Yes, the same room where the weapons live. Racks of canned goods stacked next to Mark 48 torpedoes. Boxes of cereal where you'd expect to see sonar equipment. It's not permanent. As the crew eats, the space opens back up. But on day 1, the boat is stuffed. Sailors joke that the hallways shrink after stores load. You turn sideways to squeeze past a pallet of canned tomatoes. You duck under a bag of bread flour hanging from a pipe. One sailor described it like this. Day 1, you can barely move. Day 30, the corridors feel normal again. Day 60, the boat feels roomy. That's not a metaphor. The sub literally gets lighter and more spacious as the food disappears. And the cooks know exactly what to pull and when. They work off a menu cycle that rotates proteins and sides to keep variety up and waste down. The cycle is built backwards from the storage map. What's up front and accessible gets cooked first. What's buried deep in a freezer or stuffed behind a panel waits until week 4 or 5. The system is called first in, first out. It's not new, but on a submarine, it's life or death. If you bury the fresh eggs under 2 pallets of canned corn, those eggs rot before you can reach them. If you put the frozen chicken in a freezer that's hard to access, the cooks waste time digging when they should be cooking. Every placement decision is a logistics calculation. Cubic inches, access time, shelf life, weight distribution, and that brings up something most people don't think about. Food has mass. A 90-day food load for 130 people weighs tons, literally. When you eat several tons of food over 3 months, the boat's weight changes. The balance changes. Submarines stay level using ballast tanks and something called trim. As food disappears from the front of the boat, the trim team adjusts water in the tanks to keep everything stable. The cooks don't just feed the crew, they shift the boat's center of gravity every single day. So stores load isn't just stocking a kitchen, it's engineering. It's Tetris with a deadline and no second chances. And it sets the clock. 90 days. That's how much food they can physically fit and practically manage. After that, the math breaks. But fitting the food is only half the problem. Someone has to turn those tons of raw ingredients into hot meals around the clock. The galley on a Virginia-class submarine is smaller than most food trucks. tight, hot, loud, and it never stops. The team running it are called culinary specialists. Small crew, huge job. They cook breakfast, lunch, dinner, and something submariners call mid-rats, midnight rations. It's a full meal served around midnight for sailors coming off watch or heading into the next shift. Mid-rats matter. When you work 6 hours on, 6 hours off, or some variation of rotating watch, your body doesn't care what the clock says. You need food when your shift ends. So the galley runs 4 meal windows every single day. That's not reheating leftovers. That's fresh cooking, hot food, every time. And here's the thing submariners mention over and over: fresh bread. Even 60 days into a deployment, the galley bakes bread daily. Rolls, loaves, sometimes cinnamon rolls if the cooks are feeling generous. It's a morale anchor. The smell of baking bread in a steel tube 400 feet underwater does something to people. It makes the space feel less like a machine and more like a home. Same with ice cream. Some boats have soft serve machines. It's not about luxury, it's about sanity. When you haven't seen the sun in 2 months and you're staring at the same gray bulkheads and the same faces every single day, small comforts stop stress from building into something worse. The Navy knows this. Food isn't just fuel, it's the cheapest, most effective performance booster on the boat. The menu cycles are deliberately planned. Protein rotation keeps things from feeling repetitive. Monday might be chicken, Tuesday is beef, Wednesday is fish, Thursday is pork, Friday loops back. Sides rotate too. Mashed potatoes, rice, pasta, roasted vegetables, salad while the fresh lettuce lasts. Breakfast rotates between eggs, pancakes, French toast, breakfast burritos, oatmeal. And then there are the special meals. Thanksgiving underway, Christmas dinner at depth, steel beach picnics, which is what submariners call a cookout-style meal served when morale needs a bump. Pulled pork, burgers, grilled chicken, all made in a galley the size of a closet. These meals are planned months in advance and loaded as part of store's load. The ingredients are protected. You don't touch the Thanksgiving turkey in week 2. It's locked in the plan, but cooking is only part of the job. Sanitation is the other half. In a closed environment where 130 people share recycled air and limited water, contamination spreads fast. A case of food poisoning on a submarine doesn't just make people sick, it degrades mission readiness. So the galley follows strict hygiene protocols. Surfaces cleaned constantly, temperatures monitored, hands washed, gloves changed, food stored and labeled by date. Nothing gets casual. The culinary specialists work in tight quarters with hot equipment, sharp tools, boiling water, and fryers. They do it in shifts, so the galley is always staffed. They do it while the boat is rolling in rough seas. They do it during drills when the lights go red and alarms sound. And they do it knowing that if they mess up, 130 people suffer. One cook described it this way: you're not just making food, you're making the day better. When someone comes off a tough watch, or they just spent 8 hours staring at a screen in the sonar shack, or they're homesick, or they're stressed, that tray is the highlight. You don't phone it in. The galley runs on discipline, rhythm, and pride. But even with perfect cooking, a new problem shows up fast. All that food creates waste, packaging, scraps, trash, and there's no dumpster at 400 feet. So where does it go? Trash on a submarine is handled by a machine called a trash disposal unit. TDU for short. It's basically a torpedo tube for garbage. Here's how it works. The crew collects trash in bags. They load it into a metal can. The can gets weighted so it sinks. Then it's loaded into the TDU, a pressurized tube that opens to the ocean. The tube floods, equalizes pressure with the sea outside, and then ejects the can. It drops to the ocean floor. Done. The TDU runs on a strict schedule. You don't just fire trash whenever you feel like it. It's coordinated with the boat's depth, location, and operational security. Ejecting trash makes noise. It creates a bubble trail. If you're trying to stay quiet, you wait. So trash gets compacted and stored until it's safe to dump. That means the crew has to manage volume carefully. Flatten boxes, crush cans, squeeze every bit of air out of the bags. The tighter you pack it, the fewer ejections you need. But trash is only one part of the closed-loop system. Water is another. A submarine makes its own fresh water using distillation plants. They take seawater, boil it, and capture the steam. The steam condenses into pure water. Salt and minerals stay behind. The fresh water is used for drinking, cooking, cleaning, and showers. The system produces more water than the crew can use, so water isn't rationed the way it used to be on older boats. You can shower, you can cook pasta, you can wash dishes. The limit is heat and energy, not supply, and the reactor provides both. Air is the third piece. The boat has two jobs: remove carbon dioxide and add oxygen. Carbon dioxide builds up every time someone exhales. If it's not removed, the air becomes toxic, so the boat uses machines called CO2 scrubbers. They pull CO2 out of the air using a chemical reaction. The cleaned air goes back into circulation. It's continuous. As long as the scrubbers are running, the air stays breathable. Oxygen is added through electrolysis. The boat runs electricity through water, splitting it into hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen is released into the air. The hydrogen is vented overboard or burned off safely. The system is so efficient that air quality on a modern submarine is often better than air quality in a crowded office building. The boat can stay submerged for months without surfacing for air. The reactor makes the power. The power runs the scrubbers and the oxygen generators. The loop is closed, so food is the only input that can't be made on board. You can't synthesize a steak. You can't electrolyze a potato. Every calorie has to be loaded before the hatch shuts. And because food has mass and volume, it creates a second problem. When the boat loads tons of food, it gets heavier. When the crew eats that food over time, the boat gets lighter. Weight shifts from the bow to the stern or side to side depending on where the food was stored. The submarine's trim has to be adjusted constantly. Trim is controlled using ballast tanks. The boat takes on seawater or pumps it out to stay level. As the food is consumed, the ballast team compensates by shifting water. It's a slow, continuous process. The cooks don't think about it, but the engineers do. Every tray that gets served changes the boat's balance by a tiny amount. Over 90 days, those tiny amounts add up. The result is a boat that stays submerged, stays breathable, stays clean, and stays balanced. But even with perfect systems, there's still a ceiling. And it's not the reactor, it's not the air, it's not the water, it's food, space, and people. And that ceiling sits right around 90 days. Here's the math: 130 people, 4 meals a day, 90 days. That's 46,800 meals. Each meal is roughly 800 to 1,000 calories, depending on the person's job and watch schedule. Engineers and deck crew burn more. Admin and sonar might burn less. But the average sits around 3,000 to 3,500 calories per person per day. Multiply that out. You're looking at over 4 million calories. That's tons of food and weight, hundreds of cubic feet in volume, and thousands of hours in prep and cleanup. Now layer in the constraints. A Virginia-class submarine has limited space. The galley is tiny. The freezers hold only so much. The dry storage is spread across the boat in every crack and corner the designers didn't assign to something else. You can't just add another freezer. You can't expand the galley. The boat is what it is. So the food load is capped by geometry, not policy, not preference, physics. Then there's workflow. The culinary specialists can only cook so fast. Even with perfect planning, there's a limit to how many trays you can prep, cook, serve, and clean in a 24-hour cycle when you're working in a space the size of a hallway. If the crew were bigger, say 200 people, the kitchen couldn't keep up. You'd need more cooks, more galley space, more equipment, and there's no room for that. The third constraint is variety. 90 days is about as long as you can rotate proteins, sides, and breakfast options before people start to burn out. You can only eat spaghetti so many times before it stops feeling like a meal and starts feeling like punishment. Morale depends on variety. Variety depends on having enough different ingredients. And ingredient diversity takes up space. The longer the patrol, the more you need to pack, but the boat can't grow. So at some point you hit a wall. That wall is around 90 days. Some boats have pushed longer. Ballistic missile submarines, the ones that carry nuclear deterrent weapons, can stay out over 100 days. But they have bigger crews, bigger galleys, and different mission profiles. Attack submarines like the Virginia class are built for speed, stealth, and flexibility. They're smaller, tighter, and their food endurance reflects that. So the real secret isn't a machine. It's not a gadget. It's not classified technology. The secret is people. It's the planners who calculate every meal 6 months before the boat leaves. It's the logistics team who turn a pier into an assembly line and cram a supermarket into a steel tube. It's the culinary specialists who bake bread at midnight and serve hot meals in a room that rocks and rolls and never sees daylight. It's the crew who eat what's in front of them without complaint because they trust the system, and it's the engineers who adjust the trim, the waste team who compact the trash, and the watchstanders who keep the air clean and the water pure so the cooks can do their job. A nuclear reactor can run for 30 years without refueling, but a submarine runs on flour, discipline, and a galley that never sleeps. 90 days. That's the ceiling. Not because the technology fails, because the math runs out. And when the freezers go empty and the last bag of rice is gone, the mission ends. Not with a bang, with an empty shelf. If this pulled back a hatch you've never seen, hit subscribe. We break down the hidden systems that make impossible missions work. Drop a comment and tell us what to open next. How do they handle showers at 400 feet? What about laundry rotations? Or how do you sleep 2 feet from a torpedo? Let us know.